NBS Frontline.
Covered in River Quarry in Yumbe district.
Silently yet rapidly, political pressure is mounting, entrapping both office seekers and the electorate in its webs. What appears to be ordinary social gatherings among friends and colleagues is quickly transforming into lobbying and campaign platforms.
So this means that if the competitors are on the ground, then the ministers who are usually busy through this have a way of bringing many people together.
You pretend that you have a birthday party, but when in actual sense you want to announce yourself for a certain...
If the chaos on Tuesday is any indication, the 2026 elections have unofficially begun. It's not just the ruling NRM party that has capitalized on its gatherings. Opposition parties, despite their struggles, are also strategizing and campaigning under the guise of innocent meetings.
So it's all about numbers.
This is not business as usual.
But what are the implications of these early campaigns on service delivery? With most elected officials spending more time outside of the office, how will this impact their duties? The NRM, with its majority in the legislature, is likely to be affected. And with Uganda already in a campaign frenzy, what's at stake?
This is something which is interesting to watch because we have been seeing massive turn-up wherever the president goes. I'm sure it is speaking to something to this country.
We will now one by one fight and fall over each other to organize huge function to show Museveni that they are working for him.
So if people use this advantage to introduce themselves to the population, it's also okay.
Ultimately, the 2026 elections will be a critical test of Uganda's democratic institutions and the maturity of its political class. Will the country emerge stronger and more united, or will the campaign frenzy tear it apart? Only time will tell. This is The Frontline. NBS Frontline.
A very good evening and welcome to this edition of The Frontline. My name is Charles Mwangusha Mpagi. And in Uganda, actually to say early campaigns beginning would be a misstatement because I don't think we ever get out of campaign mode from one election to the next election and to the next election. Is it unique to this country? Does it happen elsewhere? Maybe, maybe not. But we're looking at the 2026 general elections, the road to that. No mention so far of whether government intends to introduce any electoral reform laws. And we're counting down, it's getting to less than 1.5 years. You don't see alternative moves to push for electoral reform laws from the opposition benches, but we see a lot of activity, including a proposal to amend how a leader of opposition is elected that came up during the Gulu sitting of Parliament recently. What else is going on? We saw also a return of tear gas with Robert Sentamu Kyagulanyi. Something was exploding near his vehicle. He jumped out limping, and we're wondering what exactly happened. The police has said, as a professional body, it will only speak after a thorough investigation. But what does this mean? How is the country preparing itself for the journey towards 2026, or the road towards 2026? Let me begin, before I introduce the panel that I have this evening, appreciating all of you who watch this show, and especially the incredible people that send comments on the show, but also those who debate the show on the various social media platforms. Very, very incredible and encouraging tweets on X from the show we had last week. Lots of people weighing in. And we appreciate, especially when someone says, I'm not watching the show, but they discuss the show because they were watching it. Those give us, we appreciate that. I personally appreciate that very much. And I encourage you to continue discussing and debating the show. From where we sit, there is no negative comment. All the comments are important because they help us become better. Let me introduce the people I have in studio this evening. Let me start with the Honorable member of this panel, a frontliner, Member of Parliament for Kira Municipality, and now transitioning to the People's Front for Freedom?
Yeah.
Front for Freedom, PFF. It has applied to get registered by the Electoral Commission. We're monitoring both at the EC and at the registered address of the intending party to see how that comes to realization. And the question will be, which we'll ask later, how many new formations are we likely to see before we get to the 2026 general elections? And what will that mean to the landscape as it is already? So the Honorable Ibrahim Ssemujju-Nganda, you're most welcome to the Frontline.
Thank you, Charles.
We have senior citizen. She doesn't need any more introduction. Dr. Miria Koburunga Matembe. Very nice to have you.
Okay, thank you. I think my mind was away. Good evening. Good evening, listeners. First of all, I would like to express my condolences, extend it to all my Namasagara alumni for having lost our distinguished great man, Father Grimes, who has now gone to be with the Lord.
And speaking about that, and especially something you are very passionate about, and you have been very passionate about for very many years, let's also extend our condolences to the family of the athlete Rebecca Cheptegei, who was doused in petrol and set on fire, sustained very serious burns, and didn't survive them. An act of domestic violence for a young lady who actually represented Uganda at the just concluded Paris Olympics 2024. I think that's a very, very sad development for people of Uganda. We have with us from the National Resistance Movement Secretariat, Director Communications, Emmanuel Lumala Dombo. Very nice to have you, sir.
Thank you very much, and it's a pleasure for me to be here once again after a while.
Thank you very much, sir.
And good evening to my fellow panelists. And let's hope that we shall have an interesting show.
And all the way from Butambala, from the National Unity Platform, Chairperson of the Public Accounts Committee of Parliament, the Honorable Muhammad Mwanga Chivumbi. Very nice to have you, sir.
I'm glad to be here, and once again, I hope to have a great evening.
Dombo teases you always and calls you MK.
A lot of friends call me MK.
MK.
Before MK got issues, I have one day my president told me he was in a car, so I think I'd saved him as MK. So he was with some of his boys. So the phone rang and said MK. They looked at him and said, "Now."
They thought he was a sellout.
But be as it may, it's just happens. Me to be Mwanga Chivumbi and Muhozi to be Muhozi Kainerugaba. And we happen to have gone to school in the same years, by the way. P7, not the same school, P7, S4, S6. I think we did exams at the same time. The rest I will not mention. Each one took his different ways.
Let me start this discussion this evening with the Honorable Ibrahim Ssemujju-Nganda. You're dressed in the colors that you have booked with the Electoral Commission, indicating formation of a new political party.
It's a different color.
Yes, this is the new formation that is emerging out of the former Reform Agenda, former Forum, the Forum for Democratic Change. This is what we have been referring to as the Katonga faction, but which has now applied to the Electoral Commission to be registered as a new political party. And the question is, why have you considered registering a new entity this late towards the next general election? And what does that mean for the broad opposition, that rather than put forces together, you are registering new players, you're trying to create a completely new entity when there are so many options for you to have joined?
I think that question has been asked each time a new party is born. When the FDC itself started, the thinking was that it should have joined either DP or UPC. both the oldest political parties in Uganda had their own prejudices and issues. But you remember the circumstance at that time favored what in journalism generally looked like a breakaway from the NRM. In fact, if you recall, there are people from DP and UPC in particular that helped FDC start, but they did not join it. But thought it was important to have a party in the middle, one that is not going to be blamed for the history, for the past, a party that starts on a clean sheet. So political parties will be formed. That's what the law says. People can form them, including one person. You can walk to electoral commission as one person and book names and register a party, provided you have the endorsement of 50 Ugandans from at least 2/3 of the districts in Uganda. Even one person can walk to electoral commission to register a party. We don't consider ourselves a new party, and I don't think you consider me a new person in politics. But the circumstances have made us go to register a party because the other one has been taken over by the state. It's not that we woke up one day and said we will go and I mean, you know how much energy we've put in the FDC. But the circumstances, either you go and join existing parties or you form a new party. And at the beginning, all that debate we've gone through, there are those who said we should start a pressure group, but eventually, majority of the delegates say, no, we should go and register a new party. It's not a one. I've seen in the media distorting basically register as a party. I mean, you had a meeting of 800 people who took a decision. And then in the media, maybe because of his prominence, basically starts a party. So this decision, I know in the meetings, basically wanted a pressure group. I wanted a party. And I had said much earlier that I favor formation of a new party. So because we are not necessarily a new group, we are only rebranding and reloading ourselves because of what has befallen us. I actually don't want to be referred to as a new group. The name, yes.
Do you intend to carry through with your threat to deregister the Forum for Democratic Change?
We have issued a notice, which is provided for under Article 36 of the FDC Constitution. Maybe the FDC is the only party in Uganda that has an article in its constitution that can lead to its closure. I don't think NRM has it.
You have, like you say, you have watched, you're not a new person. The people leading the new formation, PFF, are not new. What's your calculation about your chances of penetration to gain the traction that you need? Are there new entities,
you see,
maybe save for NUP, have not fared as well?
In the struggle for freedom, we are all making a contribution. I don't think one entity, one group. That's why in other countries, in Malawi, in Zambia, and elsewhere, even the church, the academia, the media, this has been a collective effort everywhere. They have registered success. We don't have to be one party to go and win power. You may win it. But we need to work together. We may not agree on everything, including the policies after Museveni has fallen, but we can work together.
In other places, I'm glad that
in fact, that was one of the resolutions that we made.
I'm glad you're referring to other places, to other countries that have. You see emergence of two major players, two major political parties, and those are the ones that are able to shape up, to shake the political dynamic in a country. Here you're talking about,
things keep
that
changing.
Electoral Commission register has about 30?
About 38.
Yeah, about 38 registered political parties.
You see, even historically, in countries where they have had two dominant parties, in Europe, you've seen none of these parties is winning elections. In South Africa, I think is the latest example on the continent. At the beginning, you had the ANC and maybe followed by this part of the white people. Eventually, even ANC was unable to form a government. In Europe, these examples are almost
Yeah, because
everywhere.
Because you have had many splinters. You have the MK emerging, Umkhonto we Sizwe, of former ANC president and
That's
president
human
of the country.
nature.
Yes.
That's human nature. You will not stop people disagreeing, but people may also not choose to associate with, they may choose to associate with a particular group and not associate with another. And the PFF, I cannot guarantee that will be the last party in Uganda.
Dr.
People
Matembe,
will
let me
keep,
come to you.
registering other parties.
Very quickly.
Yes, let me come
Why
to you.
don't you first ask people who are active in politics?
You watch politics
And then
from outside.
observe.
Eh? Yes, and that's the question I want to put to you. What is the space for new political formations emerging in this, in our political terrain, as they are, especially when they come as political parties?
Matembe is setting her own questions.
For me, whether they form parties, new ones or they don't, it is all nonsense now in this country. Because if it depends on what is driving people, as long as people are driven by self-interest to form whatever party and whatever. You are talking now of this, what is it called?
PFF.
You know, I have not been interested in all these things. I mean, I have my life to think about at this age. But when you call me and disturb me to come and talk, then I come and throw in what I see. By the way, I never see you here. Maybe if you've been discussing when I was not there. And I keep asking the press, why do you always, in fact, they ask me, now there is FDC, now it has formed a new party. I say, leave me alone. Why don't you call me to discuss why MK and NRM are separating and they are different? Why don't you ask me that? They don't want to ask that.
You know,
But they jump.
I want you to talk about it.
They jump. Wait. They jump at any political party that has got a question here which is not in government. They jump at you to say, now, criticize this. Me, I've watched as I told you, Dombo, did I say I'm in this thing before you? I'm older than you.
Absolutely, yes.
Okay, so I've told you here, I'm a senior citizen. I have had an opportunity to watch and then participate in Uganda's politics and then quit. And I have seen, and I want to tell you that in Uganda, even coming here to discuss, is Uganda ready for elections? Which elections are you talking about? How can you go for elections when it is already known and concluded that either the next president is either Museveni or his son? Now, why should we be going for elections? I mean, forming parties and that kind of thing. To me, let them form, let them do what they do, but to us Ugandans, and when I speak, by the way, I speak on behalf of many Ugandans. To us Ugandans, as long as what drives Uganda into this governance and politics is self-interest and not the interest of Ugandans, it doesn't matter to us.
You said we should invite you to discuss debate within the ruling party.
Did I tell you should invite me? I said, why don't you?
Why don't we? Yes, that's the same question you're asking. Over the last few weeks, we've seen some interesting development, at least on the record. People who say they are speaking for General Muhoozi Kainerugaba on one side, the PLU MK Army, and on the other side, disciples of Odrek Rwabogo have also been exchanging, indicating some...
Both of them, senior presidential advisors.
Yes.
One on special duties, another on export.
Yes, indicating some kind of friction within the first family itself on political issues. I believe this is something you have also been watching. I don't know what you have to say about that.
So when I tell you that for us Ugandans, I think we should be left alone out of this nonsense. Because, for instance, first of all, why should, and I said it long and again, a president who appoints his son as the army commander, the man who speaks funny things, who is indisciplined, who does not even show respect to people. And then he goes and tweets. You know that thing? He tweeted and I saw it. You know, I'm not technologically knowledgeable, but I can come across these things. And he tweets and says, anybody who thinks that I'm not going to be the president of this country, since I'm becoming one, I will deal with them. And he even specifically says, and as for the army officers, they will see. And that is after his brother had been in Yantonde, was it in Yantonde? You have seen that on social media, where it was saying, you people who think that MK project is just a joke, it is a very serious issue. Better rise up and support us. I'm there listening.
Was that the uncle?
The uncle, who is the uncle? Toyota. I think it was Toyota. He said, anybody who thinks this project is not there, it is real, it is working, it is done, it is sealed, and actually the president is soon telling us, move on. And therefore, you better rise us and support us. Because where we have reached, no surrender, no turning ground. And he's declaring that. And the son is also saying that. And then you come and say, is Uganda ready for elections? And yet, nobody arrests them. Nobody shoots at them when they're doing all this. But you wait, Chaguranyi is passing around, going to see a friend or somebody, shooting tear gas and that kind of thing. So how can you talk to us of that? As for the division in the first family, me, I'm thanking God for that. Because God can fight for us, by the way. You are joking. If I can quote for you scripture, for us who pray, when I think it was King Jehoshaphat, when he was faced with such a big army from the other side, and he saw he couldn't manage, and he went to God and prayed, and God told him, you go around and singing. And as he was singing, the people in the war inside there, they started fighting one another. And in the end, Jehoshaphat won. So, honestly, even mannerism, I want to ask, what sort of a family is this? Where you find the first son, from the first family, is attacking the husband of his sister,
on political issues?
Of his sister, attacking. Do you know what mannerism means? Do you know what a family means? When you have your family, even when your brother or whatever does a wrong, I'm not saying that you go and support it, but you are not the one to go and wash that linen in public. We have a language, we have a proverb in our family values. You don't go and wash that linen in public. If there are certain things there, you don't go and power things in public like that, and you are attacking one another. Now, what does that mean? For me, when I see them attacking one another, now I say, what sort of a presidential material? No value system, no. What sort of people are these? What sort of people are these? So I say, God, help us, we be like Jehoshaphat. For us, because we have no power, no authority, you fight for us.
Emmanuel
and
Dombo,
so we watch out.
Dombo, let me come to you. People watching the NRM very closely, and some of this discussion, the questions I'm putting to Dr. Matembe, come straight at the entrance of the ruling party, the party in power. You have PLU is an offshoot of the NRM. The ONC office of the national chairman, which is running its operations, some of its operations out of Chambogo, is part of NRM. Where you sit at Chadon Road is NRM. And people asking, what kind of formation are we likely to have? What are we watching as we move towards the next election?
Has the chairman of NRM changed? Because I want to thank Honorable Matembe One of the people I used to admire a lot when I was in Parliament, I remember inviting her to Mukono UCU when she came to preach. And I admired her counseling techniques that she had. And I believe as a Christian, she still possesses them. And I know Museveni is her elder brother. And you come from the same side.
In fact, he's my brother-in-love.
So, because you have had the privilege, even in serving him and serving in his government, you know, when Honorable Matembe was appointed minister, we had gone to visit her in her constituency with John Kazora. They organized functions together with Honorable John Kazora. And as YPA, we used to bombard an area and do functions together. When we were coming to Mbarara, we heard Honorable Matembe had been appointed and they had been invited to Kampala for swearing in. And so you have worked with the president, and that gives you a leverage. If you want to talk to him, you can pick a phone and talk to him. Because going back to the same issues of mannerisms, me, I wouldn't want to come here on TV and talk things that I may not be privy to.
Still remember the question you asked him.
Yes, because I wanted to start with Matembe's submission before I get to the question. But now coming to NRM, Office of the National Chairman, and PLOU, there is totally no contradiction at all. Because the National Chairman is the father of the CDF, who is the head of the PLOU. And this is public information which has been discussed. The Office of the National Chairman, Chambogo, coordinates the activities of the Office of the National Chairman, who is the President of Uganda. And all these are aimed at consolidating national resistance movement, but also building Uganda as a country. So I haven't seen any contradiction, although many people may wish that contradiction to be there. If my sister can come here and pray that let God help us like it was during Jehoshaphat.
What do you think you know? You wait.
No,
you will see.
God can be, God.
You wait.
The good thing I love about God is that everybody can access God because everybody can pray.
You wait.
Because my sister can pray to God, but also other people can pray and God can hear and answers their prayers. Do you think this long stay of President Museveni, God is not aware?
Mama, what are you talking about?
That one.
Do you know how long it took Sauro to get off the kingdom?
Yeah, that's what I'm telling you.
When he was already overthrown?
That's what I'm telling you.
Do you know that?
That's what I'm telling you, that God,
my friend,
God allows, wills.
Yes.
Because God wills.
He has his time.
What has been, and there is time for everything.
Okay, okay. Now.
So this is biblical.
Okay.
So if you know it.
Two different people praying to the same God.
Absolutely.
Can sing the song Katonda Yabade Mwene song.
Don't laugh.
With different interpretations. We're experiencing God in different ways.
Me, I don't ridicule God and laugh like that.
You cannot ridicule God, but I want to tell you, you know, recently I went to a place we were mourning. Well, actually, recently I lost my brother. And some person came and said, you know, this has happened. The devil has done this. We don't know what the devil. But ask them that, can the devil do this without God knowing? Because otherwise, if you choose to think like that, you'd imagine that God can sleep and the devil does it without him knowing. So whatever happens in the country, whatever happens in the world, God wills it. And everything has its own time. So this time for us is to prepare and consolidate. Because I want to tell you that yesterday we had a meeting with His Excellency the President. And he told us he's going to convene the Central Executive Committee meeting and he's going to announce the roadmap for us to give us work and go and do about the register, about the structural elections, about so many things happening in the party. So whether PLOU announces, whether Muhoozi becomes presidential candidate or leads a structure, Muhoozi is the son of President Museveni. And Muhoozi was appointed by his father, who is the president of Uganda. That's fact.
And therefore, but you see...
Can he conclude his thought? Let him conclude
What is concluding, what is disturbing me, is taking a country and handing off, as if it is a family matter. If Muhoozi was not the son of Museveni, I mean, if the army commander was like, whom do I say now? Choose an army commander, one of the army people who is an army commander. Would he really be going outside, mobilizing people and stationing himself for presidential position? I want us to look at those things.
There's any problem with his aspiration as a Ugandan?
No.
His individual aspiration.
Would he really be still an army commander?
Yes, conclude your thought and then I'll go to Mwanga.
Charles, I want to tell you that at the time I was in Parliament with Honorable Matembe, she knows the struggles that we had and the hard questions. We used to ask either the president, the members of parliament, or even the UPDF. One time, Honorable Semujunganda, you remember when the police had done a recruitment in the country, which members of parliament thought was biased. You know how parliament conducted. So if the president, the structures of organs of administration that we have in the country don't stop members of parliament from questioning into what the military is doing and if they have offended the law. Me, I speak for the president as chairman of the party. I speak for the National Resistance Movement and its structures and the leaders of the National Resistance Movement. I cannot come here to begin haranguing and doubting my chairman on TV.
Thank you.
Even if there was anything that he wanted advice on or he wished to be advised on, there's established structures and rules and the forums through which this can be done.
Thank you.
But the members of parliament, let them do their work.
Thank you.
Like Honorable Matembe used to do when she was in parliament.
The Honorable Mwanga Chivumbi, you represent Butambala, but for the National Unity Platform. We saw an incident yesterday involving your party president. One would like to know exactly what it is that you know now, that you could share with us, and whether the NUP has overcome recent issues that you've been having where we saw schisms emerging within your party as you prepare for the 2026 elections.
But I find it difficult. One, my senior colleagues here are going into the spiritual world to attempt to address. You are the one who is thorough in English.
The earthly things.
The mundane earthly things. The other one is inherently politics is a disagreement by nature. If there was no disagreement, there will not be politics. So for any institution that has a life, there will always be a disagreement. The question is, are they irreconcilable differences of opinion? Now, when you start a political party, you started to achieve a particular political objective. In Uganda, you form a political party in the recent past to oppose M7 dictatorship. People don't say we should not personalize. But the essence is, what is causing all these problems is the person of President Yoweri Kaguta Museveni and his schemes, for which it is so disheartening to see a senior citizen like Emmanuel Domba, I admired also so many years ago, reducing himself, I cannot be here, have no opinion of mine, I cannot...
Former chairman
of PAFO.
In case I lose my job.
It's so disheartening,
painful,
to see eminent people take that road, kind of surrender. He has an opinion. He says, who am I to come here, voice an opinion? Who are the sun? I mean, It's something you don't want to see and be part of. Therefore, you are speaking about what has happened. What has happened to the president of the National Unity Platform is not a one-off. It happened to Dr. Kizza Besigye so many years ago. It is happening now to Honorable Kyagulanyi because he's a leading opposition leader in Uganda with a known political traction. Whoever has that ability, my friend Elias Lukwago, when he had that same kind of traction in Kampala, you remember what could happen to him? He was beaten out of his house and he cried like a baby. So it will happen to you, whoever has that kind of level. So it is expected of a dictatorship. What we should talk about, without going the Matembe way, where he is waiting for the spiritual intervention.
Which is Matembe way? Oh. Spiritual intervention.
For the spiritual intervention.
You are joking.
We are at a level where we are still able, yes, where we are still able. God works through people. We can interpret that. God works through people in this earthly world. Therefore, we cannot surrender and wait. That's why people like Honorable Semju and I myself 4 years ago had to take the same decision. When Honorable Norbert Mao, for all intent and purposes, before he became a minister, we knew he was taking NRM, DP to NRM. We had a choice to either go on the same pickup as goods to be sold, or to jump off and join another entity and move forward. The Honorable Semjus at that time looked at our party and said, you people are in the problem, in sympathy. Today, the same FDC, what happened to DP has happened to FDC. They have faced the same choice, whether you are Kizza Besigye or not. If the party leader has sold out, if the president is in the habit of procuring, because there is a buyer and a seller, okay? If the president believes that good politics is in procuring and destroying the opposition, then you will live into that as a reality. Now,
but the question there would be, how viable are the new entities that you create?
No.
Yes.
That's viable to do what?
The viability of a new...
To create the change that you're talking about.
Yes.
Which change?
You've taken it to the spiritual world. We may not debate much.
But why do you talk of spiritual world? Am I only speaking of spiritual world? What are you talking about? Have I been bought? Have I left to working and talking for this nation? Don't just demean spiritual world. What I'm saying right here now, and I mean it, the scheme, the strategy of this current government, whether you form any party or you don't form another, or you remain what you are remaining, the parties you form or whatever, as I said, as long as they are self-driven, we are not achieving anything out of this. Okay. And what I was saying is, and I'm telling you, Semuju, in the physical, I mean, MK, in the physical, let me tell you, whether you are choosing me of spiritualizing things, in the physical, in this country, in Uganda, in the physical world, with the strategy, with the plans that Museveni and his family have, if you are telling me that there is any party through elections which is going to remove this man, you are just joking.
Okay.
It will take the power of God, I can assure you, to engineer a situation and cause a miracle like we have seen. I don't talk out of blind. Do you know why Museveni came those years when he came here? Mm-hmm. You would have stayed in Ruwero there for quite a long time. But one day, you know, for us, we were praying seriously. One day there was what is called, what was it called? Uncoordinated movement of troops. It just God somehow engineered the situation, and there was an coordinated movement of troops, and Museveni was overthrown, and Okero came on.
No, Obote
was overthrown. Obote was overthrown. And Okero came on, and Museveni had opportunity to go to Nairobi while they are in peace talks. He's advancing, and he took over. It was like miraculously done by our God, I'm telling you. So I'm hoping for a miraculous act engineered by God, they are laughing at me. You go with your parties. We shall see whether they will win any elections. Unless there is that engineering of God's miraculous action, as we also fight. For you, you fight physical. For us, we fight in the spirit.
MK, just conclude your thought.
You laugh.
No, I'm not laughing at Honorable Matembe.
We shall see.
Yes, I'm a strong believer in God's spiritual intervention. But the point I was making is that in the current political circumstances, there cannot be political stability if the leadership does not believe in a multi-party dispensation.
If you who decide to form a political party and are players in a multi-party political dispensation, what do you innovate? What do you bring as new to play? As
Honorable Matemba said, let me borrow his word of spiritual. Nobody ever knew. Even you, even political analysts like Dombo, even Honorable Matemba, who is very spiritual, that by this time there will be a Bobby Wine.
No, I didn't.
5 years ago, or 6, 7 years ago, nobody would predict that there will be a musician turned a politician and will be the biggest political leader in the country by now.
Okay, let's take a break.
Therefore, what does it mean?
Yes.
Let people organize. Let those that have found reason to disagree, like the likes of Semujo, form political entities, which essentially, as of necessity and as of essence, will have to cooperate with other likely-minded forces to form a grand coalition that will face Museveni, and will face Museveni not only for electoral purposes, but for purposes of even doing what Honorable Matembe thinks that God will intervene.
We will be taking a break.
And it is possible
someone
and
called,
can be done.
Someone called Ranthelistic Skin, something like that. It's Prosper Hub. Is tweeting on X and says, we need more discussions on issues like unemployment, interest rates, taxation, famine, regional economic marginalization. These are the real matters that influence the politics of the day. Have a panel of experts and analysts and forge a way forward. Not NUP, FDC, PLU all the time. That is a post on X. And I'll take one message from Laban in Chitagata who says...
It doesn't know that this is not an economic command center.
I am like Honorable Matembe for the first time, that why waste money in elections with all these divisions in parties, NRM inclusive? Let this money go to health instead of us going to India. Laban in Chitagata. I also take a message from, I think, James Alemi. James Alemi sent us a message. Let me just look up James Alemi in a moment. Yes, James Alemi says, today's panel is like exactly our Liverpool first 11 for this season. I don't, he's a Liverpool supporter, but I don't know what this means. Very strong. I am very happy tonight. I hope Comrade Dombo will not collapse in the studio. In Africa, it is more of a selection than a genuine democratic, peaceful, verifiable election on a level play field. I don't expect anything new in 2026. The winner is already known unless the EC says otherwise.
Yes.
James Alemi is an ardent follower of this show. I also take a message from Enoka Kuomba. Enoka Kuomba is, also says, I am exactly like Dr. Matembe. Uganda was captured in 1986. Judiciary, legislature, and executive were captured. Bank of Uganda, army, police, gold, political parties, etc. We have, he believes he's a hostage. Even conducting Frontline is under. I don't think so. He says it's under Museveni's mercy. It's not until
Yes, yes, but they chased me out.
But you're here.
No, as a frontliner, they chased me away.
Let's take a break. We'll put this up.
Frontline.
You're still watching the Frontline on NBS TV, and we are discussing the journey to 2026. This is a topic that will have almost framed the same way for very many frontliners going forward, and I believe other platforms will be discussing this, both here at Next Media, but also other media houses will be discussing this. because that's the reality of what the country is facing. And Dr. Matembe was saying, in response to one of the commentators, maybe I should give you a chance to respond to one of these guys who wrote a message on X about what we should be discussing.
The first one. What was it?
Yes, the first one. He said we should be discussing things about unemployment, economics, marginalization, and other things.
What I wanted to tell him is that he must know that all those things fall within, they can smoothen and work when there is good political governance.
Thank you.
So you cannot just discuss the tax economy or what without sorting out the whole issue of political governance and
Thank you.
leadership.
I want us to move to early campaigning, because no matter what's going on in the different... I'll come to you, Honorable Domo, in a minute. No matter what we discuss about what's going on in the political parties, individuals interested in going to parliament, in occupying different offices, have been busy in the field, and you don't create... Almost there is no correlation between what is going on there and what we're discussing as the weaknesses or the issues emerging in the political parties. The individuals are getting ready. You've seen a prominent politician from Mukono who's recently joined a new political party. I saw it in the promo before we started the discussion. But Honorable Dombo, you wanted to make a rejoinder on something.
Charles, in the structure of governance of the country, the Ugandan constitution set up institutions and created locus for them. When I was in parliament, and up to now, the constitution enables members of parliament and gives them the powers of the High Court. No other institution is given those powers. And when I was in parliament, we used to use those powers to summon the executive, the army, the police. I wouldn't come to TV to argue about things which I had been empowered in the law to do and come and lament here. I would use the laws as is so that we can find out from the president. Okay. We censured ministers. We caused investigations and sacked the executives of parastatals. We created so many issues using the structures of the constitution. So when members of parliament come here...
Who was your speaker?
And when the members of parliament come here...
Who was your speaker?
Let me...
No, who was your speaker?
Many speakers. I was there for 20 years.
Tell me the last three, before you were there.
There was Honorable Pakabulo. There was Honorable Rebecca. Sekandi, Olanya, Ayume. All those were speakers, and Honorable Betty.
But Honorable Mwanga,
so
if somebody use the very same question you're saying, you're putting, to say who are the members of parliament, and then someone mentions there were Dombo, Matembe. Yes. So
you people, why aren't you using those structures and the law to do the work that you are supposed to do?
Charles Dombo should speak the truth. Wait. The parliament in which we sat was an independent parliament under the constitution, which had not been abused and overthrown and killed. Now the parliament which we have has been captured by your head, by your chairman, and you know it very well.
Wasn't he also your chairman? Wasn't he also your president?
At that time, wasn't he there?
Were we captured? We were not captured.
So why were you not captured?
Why should these ones be captured?
Why is Semuju and MK, why are these captured?
Charles, we begin by the destruction of the constitution, by the removing of the term limit, eventually violently removing the age limit. All these were processes and steps of swallowing and capturing all the governance institutions to be taken over by the president. Please, Ugandans, tell Ugandans the truth. Don't come here and say that this and this and this. Look, when you see the Speaker of Parliament bowing, almost kneeling to the president, and going to Guru, is it Guru or Chitugumu, to bow and kneel to the president's brother. Oh, goodness me. You want to disturb my mind? What is all this nonsense, evil, and wickedness?
These previous speakers behave the same.
But you see, Charles...
No.
Charles, didn't they? But I want to move this discussion forward. going into the early campaigns. Yes.
Before we move the discussion forward, I think the point the Honorable Matembe makes, you see, this has been a journey. When the Honorable Agura Ward complained that Museveni had irregularly recruited his son into the military, that Museveni at the beginning was a person of some shame. He actually said, my son is not in the military, he's in LDU. That Museveni was also working alongside with the contemporaries. There are things that he was restrained from doing some things.
Now he's with
because the Kategayas were there, the Wapakabulos were there. Today, Museveni who can appoint his wife a minister.
But
Honorable
Semuju, let me step in there. Let me step in there. Yes. I know you have an army of supporters out there who will be complaining that I interjected, but isn't that a shirking of responsibility? M7 who became president.
Which responsibility are you talking about?
Just a minute.
We're in Parliament. Please, we're in Parliament.
M7
defending
who
the
became president under 45. You, Mwanga Chivumbi, the 530 members who sit in that house, to say we cannot rise up to the occasion to challenge. I
have not said that.
No, just a minute.
If you only waited a minute.
Allow him to at least make his
point.
When
we said, Mr. Museveni, you cannot change the constitution to prolong your stay in power, what did he do?
He sacked us.
This one, at least for you, were sacked. For us, he raided Parliament. We were beaten. You see, this Dombo here who speaks about that in Parliament, do this. What happened when Nebanda died? We're not hiding in the Parliament, and Museveni said, I will find you there. Didn't he arrest him?
Then that's when he bowed. Didn't they bow?
You see, people can pretend.
From that
this
down,
Dombo
they bowed.
Here, Dombo and Bariomus, Museveni said, I will find you in my Parliament. Bariomus was a commissioner. He arrested him in Fort Portal when he was going for.
And he slept in prison one night.
Did he come to Parliament to arrest
For us, he came. For you, you survived. For us, he came. We arrested. We were beaten. You should thank God. But I nearly died in that Parliament.
Let me put this question.
So please, the things you are saying, maybe you want us to undress. That's when you know that we are standing up. We stood up and told Museveni, you cannot change the constitution. Museveni came and raided Parliament.
When
the Honorable Rebecca Kadaga wrote to him and said, who brought this army that raided Parliament? So you are talking about, please go back. Museveni had some shame at the beginning. There are things he could never have done. Today there is nothing that Museveni cannot do.
Yes. Honorable Semuju, the challenge is on our generation. The challenge is on the generation slightly ahead of us. Just a minute.
Yes.
The challenge is on the generation that's coming behind us. To say that we can come here on TV or in Parliament and read only from the Book of Lamentations is not acceptable.
When the rules allow them to do a lot more than that.
When we should be thinking about how do we challenge, how do we make a contribution to this country in spite of the odds that exist? So,
I can understand.
Yes.
I don't want to blame anyone. Even in my constituency, I was complaining because when Parliament was raided by Museveni's guards, SFC, I was driven through my constituency and taken to Nagarama. I said, you guys, why were you waiting for TV? At least you should have broken the roads. They didn't. But you see, people react differently to violence. There are those who will dare, there are those who will not. Museveni has become more violent than he has ever been. I mean, just imagine someone.
When I was reading Popular Resistance Against Life Presidency, the president would not court-martial an activist. Would not imprison on a fake charge. The judiciary would not permit to put a fake charge of either and disorderly that the constitution has a court had already declared unconstitutional. The DPP would not permit that. Butera would not permit that to go on. But now it's with impunity.
I said
therefore, you see, you are bringing me. Let me tell you, the whole essence of beating Chagwan along the way, the whole essence of putting boys in a court-martial, the whole essence of this display of power, of impunity, is to kill the spirit of resistance. Therefore, the Uganda of Matembe, the Uganda of Dombo, when you are a
part
member of
of
parliament,
it.
it's completely.
Honorable
Museveni has
Honorable
lost
Mwanga
any sense
Chivumbi, let me
of
ask,
stigma and shame.
at the risk,
I hear you.
At the risk of
let
acting
me
like,
hear
yes.
you. I hear you say, have we surrendered? Can't we do anything? We are just inviting everybody, including you, Matembe, including Dombo here. That is also Ugandan. He's surrendering and saying, for as long as for me I have a job with the president, as long as I have a job, I can't now even talk about family matters. If you have senior citizens behaving like that, at times of challenges of this
Charles,
kind,
let me give you information.
even him
Let me give
to
you
come
information.
here, I want you to criticize the NRM and you lose your job.
Let me give you information. Charles, I was in that parliament.
What did you do?
Honorable Bira was whipped by the police in Owino. I was a member of parliament, NRM.
Start with
Just
the neighbor and us.
Let
Start
me.
with the neighbor and when you go to
Let me give
where,
information.
Where you were hiding in the parliament and Seven said I'll come and pick you. So please don't go to Nabira. Speak about yourself. You and Wariomuns, Museveni said I'll come and pick you from my parliament.
I didn't interject when he was speaking.
No, I'm talking about because you are bringing examples that don't apply.
No,
when it came to you, Dombo, you were hiding. Museveni was looking for you. He said I'll come and
allow
find
the
you
listeners,
there.
you were in parliament.
Yes.
Allow the listeners who aren't so that they can follow what I'm saying. When Honorable Bira was beaten,
You don't. Why did you
I was a
abandon
member of
Pafo?
NRM.
Why did you abandon Pafo?
I was a member of NRM.
Can you allow him to make his point, please?
I was a member of NRM.
Why did you abandon
Honorable Bira,
Pafo?
when she was cane, she was FDC. But I raised the motion on the floor, and we stayed the presentation of the budget. We created a select committee and the police was invited to come and explain and answer. So if the rules are allow for you to come here and lament, the same rules allow you.
We have,
instead of doing your work, then you come here and read lamentations. Why don't you
Dombo, you are wrong. Dombo is wrong.
Charles, if you can allow
we've
me
done all that, even recently. Honorable Semji can tell. I read a group of members of parliament walk out of parliament on human rights abuses.
Why walk out?
No,
that is also cowardly.
I'm telling you, the situation is different.
Charles, can I?
People like you sold out.
Call the ministers and put them to task.
And Honorable
Why did
Dombo,
you collapse Pafo? You were chairman of Pafo. Ask him.
Let's hear from Dr. Matemba and then I'll come to you, Honorable.
Mr. Charles,
yes.
You are being unfair, you and Dombo, to see these opposition people who are so minority in that house, who have been standing up and speaking. Just hold on. You are unfair to call them here, and when they talk, you say that they are lamenting. They are not lamenting, they are telling you what is going on. I started by saying that as long as the leadership there is driven by self-interest, because what do you expect now, the few opposition members to influence?
They are even more now.
You wait. When the majority of the people in that parliament, they are saying yes, and they are not saying to president because they believe, they are saying yes because it is a transactional parliament. What drives people to get there is what to eat, is their self-stomach, is everything. By the way, Charles, I speak with members of parliament. They meet me and say, Honorable, at least you talk for us. Come and help. When I say, but what are you doing there? Atemunange, what can you do? What can you do? They know what is going wrong there, but they cannot come out and object.
Let me take a message.
So leave these few opposition people. Don't accuse them of lamentation. No. They are not lamenting. They are telling us what is going on.
Right there. Let me take a message from Muhimbise George, who's watching us and says the divisions in political parties and the eventual breakaway of new political parties or formations like PFF is unfortunate but inevitable, because if people can't agree on how to move together, then it's better to part ways. The unfortunate bit of it is that more energy is spent as opposition fights one another rather than focusing on fighting their common opponents. These splits leave the opposition groups disorganized and weak, and by the time they regroup themselves, the NRM will be far ahead. It becomes even worse when elections come and opposition actors are jostling for positions which divides them even more. It's surely a tough journey, but we cannot give up. George Muhimbise. The Honorable Sam Kutesa is watching us and says, can you remind us, the audience, what the topic for discussion of today's Frontline discussion
He is right.
Yes, we're discussing the journey to 2026, and what you're saying in studio is exactly
part of the
journey to 2026. How you see it here is how I believe it's playing out in the field. So I think we're still pretty much on topic. It's true biblically that our God helps us, helps one who helps himself. If so, it's also possible that the 1985 spiritual intervention found the Museveni strong, organized, and that's why they marched on to liberate Uganda. That's Dr. Tanga Odoi. He's watching the show.
He is hopeless.
That's his view.
You see, Charles, at one time, do you know where he was? He used to come and tell me, now when they swallowed him, he moves like
Let me take a message from Nahamia Emmanuel Ruguru from Kazo District, who says, we are tired of politics of Thanksgiving. The truth is that we have continuously taken issues of unemployment, poverty. Let the young people be authors of change. Otherwise, the same Jews are just doing posturing politics. I want to assure you that one day, those politicians doing early campaigns in form of Thanksgiving will be overwhelmed when the young people undress themselves towards the crowd. I wanted us to go to the early campaigning.
Yeah, we can go there. You see, for me, the state that the country is in will be the same state that we go into the next elections. It's not that we don't know what will happen. We actually know. But you just keep fighting on. You just keep fighting on. We have had a discussion even within ourselves. Do we participate or we don't participate? But participation will give you some mileage. That's the only time probably Museveni will allow you to go and speak to people and mobilize and raise their level of civic competence. So but the preparation, everybody knows that going into an election, Museveni will tear gas you. He will not allow you to address rallies. He will do everything to make sure that you are curtailed until the final day when he will be declared a winner. That process we participate in knowing, but it is also a season when you can go and mobilize the public. You will never know. Sheikh Hasina of Bangladesh, after winning a 4th term, the mobilization of the campaign overthrew her immediately, less than a year. I was in Khartoum. I saw Bashir, Ben Ali of Tunisia. So these elections is part of the continuous process. Mubarak, actually, the opposition never had an MP in his parliament. The last parliament, there was no opposition at all. So the circumstances under which we go into these elections are known to us. But nonetheless, we have to continue fighting.
Thank you.
So in the past, there was an attempt to make each election better than the previous one. In terms of management, in terms of the laws, I think now Museveni no longer cares. So whether electoral reforms, they will not come. The moment he finished removing the term limit from the constitution, and then he removed the age limit, there is no proposal. He has nothing he wants more changed in the constitution, in the electoral laws, except the statutory ones that either after 10 years you need to do this. Otherwise, don't expect them.
Yeah, and we'll have a longer discussion about that. Are the people opposing him working around to create something different to challenge him? But we'll need to take a quick commercial break, and when we come back, we go to the early campaigns of Thanksgiving, birthday parties, whatever is going on out there in the field, after a short break.
Frontline.
You're still watching the Frontline on NBS TV, and we're discussing the road to 2026. Godwin Vyakatonda is watching us and says, tell Honorable Matembe that, in quotes, waiting for God to intervene in Badru is like waiting for a ship to change course while you're still on board. Godwin Vyakatonda.
You leave him alone. Does he know my God, whom I worship?
Honorable Matembe should accept diversity in opinion on political matters. Decorum, please, next time.
Who has opposed it? Who has opposed it?
Let me see if I can pick another message. Yes, this man is called Johnson Mugume from Kazo, some county, says, pose this question to Mr. Dombo with an answer, yes or no. Can an election remove President Museveni?
Dombo, it is your question.
Yes.
Okay, not Johnson Mugume. we need to move on.
He has even taken the vote after saying yes.
No, actually...
Because the elections removed the FDC.
Johnson adds, there's a part of his message which I thought I don't even need to read. He said, otherwise the debate is hot. I request you to add Mr. Dombe another bottle of water.
He has finished.
There are two here on the table.
Because there's 1 versus 3.
No, which one? You killed the powerful.
1 versus 3. What do you expect?
Let's move this discussion forward. And I want to start with, again, Honorable Ibrahim Semu Junganda. No matter the issues within the political parties, people interested in occupying different positions are busy campaigning. Some of that is seen in parties that they hold, whichever name they are given, massive events. Churches are in harvest season because political actors are out there. So you have fundraisers, Thanksgiving, all sorts of activities are taking place because the campaign has been on and is only intensifying. My question to you is, what does this mean to the broader discussion of democratization and good governance, that struggle?
I think the people who are campaigning and introducing themselves to the electorate are not doing so only this time. We have had people do that almost when elections are approaching, except those who are disguising, military officers who are disguising that they're on birthday parties when actually they are campaigning. But the rest of the politicians do it. In fact, the Thanksgiving for the MPs almost began immediately after elections. But the point, the broader point, one time even Mr. Museveni spoke about it, that you can't be a country politicking and campaigning all the time. That in itself is going to affect the level of production in the country. Unfortunately, politics has become a job. And that's why you will see many MPs, many people who clamor to go to Parliament. When Parliament starts, you will not see them again until the next election. So they are more active campaigning to be MPs than they are active in Parliament itself. And that's why probably you had voices, we need to reduce even the money that we pay MPs. People who are driven by wanting to influence policy, and that's what is driving them to go to Parliament, I don't think even a quarter of us who are in Parliament. The money that Parliament pays, I think if Parliament reduced by 80%, you may not have people politicking the way they are politicking.
There is an aspect about money, because money is the central thing in this season.
Yeah.
The people who, the election is still at least 14 months away or more, but there are people pouring in so much money already.
Politics itself has become highly commercialized because the population is vulnerable. Us MPs who are looking for money nearly to go and buy our way into Parliament. So the population everywhere you go, I have gone to constituencies in the east, in the north, and the population you meet in the trading centers, first of all, they know you MPs are just swimming in money. So they're all asking you for money, whether you represent them or not. I don't know whether we'll be able to decommercialize politics in Uganda and campaign themselves. In fact, if you look at the petition that are filed after elections, bribery runs almost through all of them. So the early campaigns are because you see, campaigns are also changing the form. Because for us, the opposition, when you go to Adwese, that is going to be difficult. So people who now flock churches and mosques and weddings and funeral, including, by the way, at funeral, you will meet candidates, opposing candidates at a funeral, and the funeral itself has become a platform for campaigning. But I don't want to blame the laws in Uganda on campaigning, but as long as politics remains the big enterprise in Uganda, you're going to have people. In the past, you have had people shooting and killing each other. You remember the killing in Chiboga, the killing in Mitiana, the killing in Mbale. People shoot to kill because they want to go and join politics. So the level of commercialization will even affect the economy. You need to look at the budget now and look at the budget of 2025, 2026. So these 2 years leading to elections are going to be very difficult years, even in terms of the performance of the economy itself. Already the Electoral Commission, in our earlier discussion, produced a 2-year strategic plan whose cost was over 2 trillion shilling to organize these elections. So the people who are staging these functions are not necessarily staging these functions because they think, so they are staging political functions but finding a convenient name to make them look like they are not campaigning.
Okay. Jimmy Kiberu is watching us and says, we are dealing with signs of a political and leadership vacuum in Uganda whose results can derail the nation. Unfortunately, the risk is being treated flippantly. Dr. Matembe,
The what?
Flippantly. Let me read it again. We are dealing with signs of a political and leadership vacuum in Uganda whose results can derail the nation. Unfortunately, the risk is being treated flippantly. That's Jimmy Kiberu. Dr. Matembe, I want to come to you. What has changed from the time when you joined politics to today, and what does extreme commercialization of politics mean? And I also need you to speak to, because you introduced us to the spiritual way of looking at our politics. Do you think the church has a role to play in reducing money in politics? Because a lot of this now, the church is a convenient way. There is no much contest there. So to express and introduce oneself to politics through church has become very convenient. I mean, very easy.
You see, I don't think it is, I don't know whether it is fair to ask me to compare the time of my politics and the politics now. Because surely, for me, I was in politics for, when you begin with the LOC 1 up to Parliament, I was there for good 17 years. But in those years, what was driving me in politics right from LOC 1 was service. I wanted to see the situation change. We were coming from a very, very bad situation where people had suffered and that kind of thing. So we were driven by service to the people, getting position to use it to serve the people and change the situation. And I'm telling you, we did. Now, by that time, this whole idea of being in power for life had not come, or we had not realized it. We thought we were going in politics for service, but not for our own stomachs. Now, when you talk of politics for today, I'm telling you, because for me, I used to go, first of all, from LOC 1 to LOC 5, for my good, were they 2 or 3 years, I never earned anything. I was putting in my salary, doing the work I was doing, mobilizing Ugandans to make them come out of what they were in. Then when I went, even when I went to Parliament, by the way, I didn't know that they earn anything from Parliament. I remember discussing it with Honorable Rizindana saying, but I was using my salary. If I go to Parliament and I leave this job, what shall I use to, to continue working for the people? And he told me, maybe they will give you some kind of allowance. You see? So we didn't know that we were even going to earn. And as we worked, nobody asked us for money. Nobody. We used to go, I used to call the whole sub-county, and I go there, they're waiting for me, and I talk, I mobilize them, and I do what I'm supposed to do, and after that, they will take me to a room and give me lunch and water, and I eat and drink and go. But now, if you call people, talk to them, those people, they people themselves, whom you are leading. First of all, they demand that you give them transport to bring them to sub-county to receive the message and information what you want to give them, which you are supposed to do anyway as a member of parliament. They expect you to give them transport, to give them lunch. They expect you to feed them in everything. Can you imagine? It is not only the leaders who are now materialistic and corrupt, but it is driven by the people themselves. And the one who introduced this thing, and I used to say it very clearly, President Museveni, because of having power more than serving Ugandans, in Runyankore we have a proverb that if he had come to serve the people, down the road he loved being in power more than serving the people. And therefore he introduced this horror materialism. The politics of corruption is the one who introduced the catchy envelope. And I used to condemn it. Envelope, envelope, envelope. At the beginning, envelope were not there. But the whole idea of loving to stay in power forever brought into all this corruption, commercialization of politics, materialism, to the extent that even those you got, what should I say? You saw there in Rwe, is it Mitiana Rwengwe, when the speaker went there, and this honorable, his honoris Chinyamatama, and said, by the way, when this woman, is it Namuju, your sister, when Semuju's sister went to Rwengwe, he said, when she stole the money, didn't he share with you? And they were clapping. Haven't you seen Ugandans receive this man of Bushenyi? Who is this? The Bushenyi man who has been out of prison.
Mawanda.
Last night I saw Mawanda saying, I'm continuing with the MK project. I am telling you we are winning. That is a thief who has been there stealing money. And everybody is now
still
happy.
Going through a court process.
He stole. Who doesn't know he stole? You didn't see him last night with people.
You are a lawyer until court.
You don't shut me down. I speak the truth. So you saw the other speaker. After that, you saw President Museveni now. When the speaker went to Bukedia, put the schools and they are all named about Museveni, Kainerugaba, this is Natasha, this is what, the schools and whatever. And then recently she went there, Simanyi football, what is it? Football stadium. And he's saying, this is the best leader. Everybody should follow suit. And this is the leader who had gone there and said in Rwengwe that you don't worry, things will work out. And what worked, I said, this will be your leader forever. And what happened? She got out, and the court, by the way, has overthrown the Semuju whatever motion. I mean, good, this man is such a good thing. Now, it is all self, it is all life leadership, it is all nonsense, it is terrible.
Okay. I agree with Dr. Matembe that whatever is done is of no consequence. She will understand this Runyankore saying that Ebya Nyarumaga, Tibiwayo.
Nyarumaga no hakandi.
I don't know. Likewise,
Museveni
and Ways can't come to an end until he achieves his so long-standing dream of making.
Yes.
The uncoordinated movement is at the door once more.
Very good.
Is in a political year of 1984,
and that's for the church. You asked
that's a message
me the
from,
church.
Yes, that's a message from Frank Tumusime, Edmund.
You asked me the church.
Yes.
Now, the materialism, the greed, the self-centeredness has not spared the religious leaders. They are all part of the whole system. you see how the bishops are. Every time a bishop is put, Museveni
Is
sends...
consecrated.
Consecrated. Museveni sends a Pajero. Is it Pajero? Land Cruiser with keys from President Museveni, as if President Museveni sells cows in Wachitora. This is our money, which is collected from us. I was saying, if you want to give vehicles to these religious leaders, get the budget. You see the department where religious leaders fall, and let money be official money, which comes from government. And when the bishop is consecrated, or the imam or whoever, he knows that he's entitled to that. But not everybody thinks everything comes from Museveni, as if he sells his cows. So they are all swallowed, and they cannot stand up and speak the truth, by the way. When I go and speak, I say, don't bring here politics. Don't bring here politics. So they are all swallowed. So when I say that God himself will deliver us, he will pass through those people who understand him and know him well and deal with the situation, not necessarily the church.
Okay. BMK Gift Senior in Nansana says, besides the mushrooming Thanksgiving ceremonies, birthday parties, or even early campaigns, Uganda needs to have had a national dialogue on political transition, issues, equity, human rights violations, etc., as opposed to organizing elections. Charles, me and you have witnessed situations where some Ugandans have repeatedly celebrated the demise of fellow Ugandans. What cannot be ignored is that many sections of Ugandans from across this country are so angry and hungry because of persistent economic hardships, a challenge majority people attribute to people from part of the country indiscriminately. This is a time bomb that needs to be addressed. Mr. Dombo, help this country, help our children, please. Honorable Dombo, I want to come to you. The early campaigning, you were there before. You've been watching it on the outside. The intensity, how it's organized, and what it means for the politics of this country.
Charles, I remember appearing on this show about 1.5 years ago, during the times when we were dealing with the by-elections, and you asked the same question. At that time, I concurred that persistent campaigning creates fatigue, and it would be seen from the outturn during the elections, because the voter turn-up in some elections was even less than 30% in some situations. And this would demonstrate that the population is getting tired. But for now, where the Independent Electoral Commission has issued a roadmap with days when certain things must be done, and it has called on political parties to put their houses in order, anybody who wishes to stand for any election, there is no better time to come up other than now. Because the Independent Electoral Commission has issued a roadmap. Actually, nominations will be next year. The presidential nominations, and I think even the parliamentary nominations are going to be next year. So, once the roadmap is out, any intelligent person, whether outside the parliament or inside, those who are inside will want to defend their positions, especially if they have not been serving their people well, or they have not going to the constituencies to do the work that they are meant to do. So, to me, there is no better time for people to go and begin politicking other than now, when the roadmap is out. But you ask a fundamental question. What creates the members of parliament? Yeah, I remember in 1994, I was working in Rakai, and I would go to test the waters. I would ride a motorcycle from Rakai up to Butaleja and go and sample from the population. The only thing I don't understand now is why members of parliament and the elected leaders don't convene campaign meetings to talk to the population, but would rather use unorthodox methods, like using funerals. There are funerals you go to. Last week I was at a funeral, you'd think it was a celebration. Because members of parliament would not even members of parliament, but the people politicking for elective positions would not even empathize with the families, the people who had lost their dear one, but they started exchanging words in such a manner that would disparage the entire process and the grieving process. This was a little bit very unfortunate. And but now coming for us in NRM, let me speak as a spokesperson of the party. You know, when a party is elected, or a member of parliament is elected, like my colleagues who are here, and they wish to defend their positions, the campaigns begin on the day you are elected. By the way you treat the people who come celebrate with you, by the way you receive the people, and for us it even becomes worse because we have a manifesto with pledges which are time-bound, that because we pledge that we are going to do this.
What was the timetable of doing roads in campaign?
We are launching the program. Come Tuesday next week, you are going to hear what the president is going to say when we are talking about the Kampala Metropolitan. So, because we have a program that we must launch, we have promises that we made. Every time we go to deliver on the programs that we promised, that becomes progressive and the continuous mobilization to tell the people why or when you are fulfilling the pledges. And if you have not fulfilled the pledge, you must explain to them when the pledge is going to be. Some people have talked about the wave, the NUP wave in Buganda here and in the central Uganda. Some of these waves, even when it came as a wave, perhaps the population was responding to unanswered questions that happened. I know there are areas where we were cheated, but in some of the areas, the population was complaining about the land evictions, which leaders were not explaining, and where the people were conniving with either the policemen or the soldiers, or fake policemen or fake soldiers. Because last month, you remember a UPDF officer who had the ranks, when actually he wasn't a UPDF officer, but in the population had been perceived as such and had been used to do land grabbing. So there is a campaign. There has been a campaign to us in the National Resistance Movement, and the incumbents, they have a responsibility to do continuous mobilization and explaining to their people. Right now, the roadmap is out. People must go and explain. Therefore, anybody who is intelligent and you're a politician, you use the existing scenarios, either where you have been invited as a guest of honor at functions, then people will do so many things, talk about the funeral or other things, but also deliver a political message when you go for those functions. Then we have the delivery on the manifesto, which we must and we should. The only unfortunate thing which is happening in these campaigns and the politicking, when you go to functions and you see the public expectation from the not only the incumbents, but even the people who wish to get elected. I have been seeing an advert from Parliament by the corporate the Information Department of Parliament, informing the population what the roles of the Member of Parliament is. And I have always argued, I said that this may be a waste of time doing this. Because in order to defeat an incumbent, the person wishing to get into that elective position starts by telling lies. Says, this road, if I had been in Parliament, I would have done this road. Those who have failed to pay fees for their children, he said, for me, if I was in Parliament, I would have paid fees for your children. They even begin buying ambulances. and delivering them to the population. Not necessarily as ambulances, but they look like ambulances. They even put their pictures on top.
They brand them.
They brand them.
Okay.
So because of that, it creates problems for members of parliament when they go to parliament, because they spend a lot of money and creates corruption. It may create corruption in parliament, but also to the population itself, it becomes corrupt. And now the MP does not deliver, but he goes to parliament to pay himself and says, even if I don't go back.
Thank you. Honorable Mwanga Chivumbi, you'll actually have the last word on the show.
There are three factors. One, it's a lack of a credible political infrastructure. When you collapse political structures or stop their formation, literally you are running as individuals, even when you have the name of a political party. But also on ground, even when you go to what semblance of political structure, you have political machineries on ground. Campaigns who you have recruited personally for hire. Now, in other political dispensations, you have a political infrastructure. One, to ask you to stand and to pledge to support you. Actually, in so many European countries, the viability of a candidate is determined by how much money he can get in donations. If you fail to generate enough money, you collapse. Because
not how much money they can individually pump into the election.
No,
how they can generate.
But how much donations can you attract? If you can attract more people to finance your campaign, most American campaigns collapse on the question of how much money you can generate.
Yeah, because people don't, they are the people who support their candidate,
not the candidate.
So you don't have an infrastructure, the culture of people urging leaders to stand. You simply come and say, I've offered myself. There's no longer that, you know, you've seen you've done some work. You simply come and literally impose yourself in some kind of a way and find out. The other issue is, for as long as in the perception of the people, the public sector like parliament pays much more than the private sector, then you are having people like, they are helping you to get elected and be well off.
Get a job.
And get a job. Now, when in Europe, for you to stand as a member of parliament, you sacrifice a prosperous career outside parliament. This affects NGOs also. In European, the NGO, people who come and volunteer to work for NGOs, they almost work out of vocational call, out of love for what they do. But right now, that spirit has died. When in Uganda, when you are offering yourself for public service, it's like you are asking for a job to be well off and therefore pay us. So that is the other, for as long as the private sector doesn't perform well, the salaries are low and everything is despicable. And the perception that
So you can't have a situation like former New York Mayor Michael Bloomberg, a wealthy man on his own right, becomes mayor and his salary is $1.
Yeah.
For a year.
For a year. And it's sacrifice. So people here, that's why in Europe, in other dispensations, people stay longer in public office because people think they made you give up something that was very useful that you are doing. And they sacrificed you to serve them in public. And they owe you a lot. But in this country,
they're doing you a favor.
They have given you a favor.
You are the one who owes them.
You are the one who owes them. They've given you a favor. Now, that is, so for as long as you don't have credible. Now, the timing, let's be mathematical. How many districts do you have in Uganda? 146. 36.
They will
46.
46. You think they won't
now,
increase?
Today, if you want to be a president and you want to spend 1 week in every district, you can no longer achieve it. How many constituencies are in Uganda? Elected, forget about this affirmative. They're about 300?
329.
And 29. You no longer have enough weekends to be in every constituency if you want to be a presidential candidate.
But most of the campaign is at parliamentary level.
No. Even now at a presidential level, that's why the incumbent rigs the game by saying a political party like Chagulanyi, you will not campaign. Whereas he's busy saying, I'm on poverty alleviation, I'm going to launch a road, I'm going to do what? You stop others from campaigning. Already what is happening is that by stopping the momentum, the people who gather around the candidates, the police beating you, tear gassing you,
But
they're showing you.
I thought Chagulanyi has been going around the country.
No, they stopped him where?
No, he covered the whole of Western Uganda.
No, he was stopped. He was stopped.
He covered it.
No, he was stopped.
Even in photo, they stopped him.
They stopped him. This has not only happened to Chagulanyi. Even when Dr. Besigye was standing, the same trick. The beating of candidates on the road, the canisters and everything, it's a build-up of psychology towards the election. To say, it's so risky to associate with this particular man here. When you go, they say in Uganda, genda ngolami. If you want to go and watch Charles, to attend Charles's rally, my friend, you know the repercussions. It's psychological. Therefore, these are the factors that are impacting on politics. For one, you no longer have time. Because time is... Two, in other countries, they give you a realistic time to start campaigning. They say, after elections, for 3 years, no one should campaign. After that, please campaign. Now, in Uganda, courtesy of the introduction, as Honorable Matemba said, of President, every single year, President Yoweri Museveni has never been a statesman. He's like any other politician, looking to bribe people, buy this one, disorganize this party, disorganize this party. So therefore, it is too late for people. If you want to stand in an election in Uganda, you're already late now. If you have, how many villages are in your constituency?
About 630.
630. Can you be in every village every weekend?
Must I be in every village?
No, what I'm saying, you will not be elected if you've not gone there, I can assure you.
Okay.
It is what Nani, Reverend, this one of America, the black American, said, you cannot lead where you will not go. Politics is a contact game. You have to be, politics is like football. It's a contact game.
Especially now with the money, you have to give money.
You have to meet the people personally. Even in Europe, you have people knocking on the door.
Are you able to meet your people in Butambala?
Yes.
All of them?
Who?
Are you able to make contact with everybody in Butambala?
No. Contact game doesn't mean that I meet you every day. But somehow, you will not be voted if you have not gone to a village. I can tell you there is somewhere, a village where I lost. I was winning everywhere. But they stopped me. I was late. I said, no, look, the time is late. My friend, I lost at that police station. Says this
Our
man
time is out. We need to get out of here. Thank you very much. Gentlemen and ladies, thank you very much. Our time is out. Let's get out of here. Thank you very much, the Honorable Mwanga Chivumbi, Member of Parliament for Butambala and a member of the National Unity Platform. Thank you very much, the Honorable Emmanuel Lumala Dombo, Director Communications at the National Resistance Movement Secretariat. Thank you very much, Senior Citizen, Dr. Miria Koburunga Matembe, and thank you very much, Frontliner, Member of Parliament, Kira Municipality, the Honorable Ibrahim Semujunganda. Thank you very much to you all our viewers for joining us this evening, and thank you very much to the production crew that stay up late to deliver the show to you. From me, till next Thursday.
NBS Frontline.